Good morning.
It's a pretty early morning for you. You came over last night.
I did.
Chuck, you are the CEO of a company that, if I asked my mother or my friends what it is about, they probably had no clue. If I asked them what Corteva does, they'd probably say maybe it's a product for whatsoever. So what do you do?
I have a problem with your microphone.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So Corteva, actually, a little background, we are the product of the Dow Chemical and DuPont merger and subsequent three-way spin. And I get often asked, Corteva, is it Corteva or Corteva? Well, it's a made-up name, so you can say it any way you want. But
what do you say?
Corteva. And it means heart of nature, so Corteva, heart of nature. And the company today really specializes in bringing next-generation technology to farmers around the world, so seed technology, and really focused on bringing sustainable solutions in terms of crop protection products. And we're in about 125 countries, including Europe. We've been in Europe we consider ourselves to be in the fabric of the European Union. We've been here for over 75 years. We have about 16 research and development centers across Europe, and it's a very important part of our business.
It's not a consumer product that you're selling. This is why we don't know you.
Yeah, now farmers would know us.
Farmers would know you.
And certainly we have relations with farmers, and I was here last year, and I spent a lot of time in Germany and actually in France speaking with farmers and their challenges, on their everyday challenges on how to produce food.
Corteva, when I kind of researched you and I found out what you're about, I was really surprised that you kind of told one of my colleagues in one of the interviews that you gave that you kind of worked on a dairy farm when you were 13 and you liked it.
That's right. So I live in Indianapolis today. That's where Corteva is headquartered. I'm a Canadian, and my first exposure to agriculture was when I was very young, 13. And I was employed as a hired hand on a dairy farm.
Doesn't sound really exciting.
It
sounds like lots of work.
I absolutely fell in love with the profession, with the purpose. To me, there's no higher calling than feeding the world.
But this is probably not what you thought about when you were 13. What did you like about it?
Well, look, you get to drive a tractor and you don't have a driver's license. That's
I understand.
That's a pretty cool thing.
I like that too when I worked on a farm.
Exactly. But look, I just the way of life, it's hard work. And today, when I look at what's happening here and across Europe, but also in other places around the world, many of us are removed from agriculture and from farming and really don't understand what it takes to produce food. And so having that connection with agriculture, I think, certainly from my perspective, is really important. That's why I spend a lot of my summers actually traveling the world, speaking with farmers literally around the world.
Would you actually argue that most people have a rather romantic kind of way of looking at agriculture? So they still think there's a farm and cow and a chicken and that's it?
I think certainly there is some nostalgia when it comes to the farmers that used to farm that way. But I think today when I look at it, to me it is one of the most sophisticated industries in the world. It certainly has the next generation of technology that is absolutely required. So it's become a high-tech business. Corteva itself, we spend 8% of our revenue in research and development. So we are investing significantly to ensure that farmers are well equipped, that have the tools that they need to really generate profit from their farming operations, but also we're helping them transition the way they farm. I think it's absolutely important that we continue to focus on sustainability, and really driving up productivity on the farm is critical. And the only way we can see how to do that is investing in technology.
Lots of people who actually don't know a lot about how farming really is and what kind of work has to be done, they would probably argue to get more sustainability, we need less technology, we need less of what you're about. What's your answer to that one?
Yeah, we would disagree with that. We fundamentally believe that really the only pathway to drive up sustainability in agriculture is to use technology. And what we have to accomplish is, there's two twin pillars in agriculture. There is sustainability, so producing more with less land, less water, less carbon. That's absolutely critical.
And less destruction of biodiversity as well.
Well, so having the land that we already have in production, making it more sustainable, making it more productive is critical. If you look at what's going to happen by the time we get to the year 2050, we all know that there's going to be close to 10 billion people on the planet. We don't want to be able to put more land in production. So we have to drive up the productivity per acre. And the only way to do that is to really focus on technology. The other twin pillar for agriculture is global food security. And up until the pandemic, the industry made huge strides where we were seeing a reduction in people that are undernourished. Since the pandemic, that progress has stalled for lots of different reasons.
There's more famine out there today than there was 5 years ago.
The most recent stats are there's 800 million people, so 1 in 8, that are still undernourished or malnourished, and a lot of those are in children. And so we have to really focus on driving global food security while delivering on our sustainability agenda. And the combination of those two is going to prompt us to bring the next generation of technology onto the farm.
So to get this clear, your argument is we need more productivity on less soil. And this is why we need more technology.
That's right. So the pathway is, unless we're going to put land in production and actually start increasing deforestation, which we know are devastating in terms of the impacts on the planet, we have to have the land that we have today be more productive, because we have a population increase, we have wealth increase around the world, and the consumption of food. There's other parts of the value chain that are equally important. So when it comes to food waste, 30% or more of food is wasted today, so we have to figure out how to extend the shelf life of our food. That's going to come from technology. So one of the things that Corteva is actively working on, and you start thinking about it, there's 3 kind of mega trends that we see in agricultural technology. One is the products that we use today to protect our crops, having lower usage rates. So having products that require very little application on fields. So let me give you an example. We have a brand new product. It's a herbicide. It's used in rice, one of the largest crops in the world. All we require and all farmers require is 1 sugar packet per hectare to be applied to protect the crop. That's 150 times less than the next product. So you can see the advancements in terms of sustainability, but still protecting the crop. Absolutely incredible. The next pillar here is biological solutions. So finding solutions out of nature that actually are living beings, so microorganisms that will help protect the crop, potentially even reduce fertilizer usage on these crops. So that is another huge investment that the industry is making, and Corteva is one of the largest biological providers in this space. The third area is, and I'm in Europe, so we'll have to have the GMO conversation eventually. We'll hold that.
Let's wait for a second. We get there.
We'll get there. But the next generation of crop design and crop breeding is what's called gene editing. We call it NGTs, so new genomic techniques. And this is not GMO. This is using the crop genomes, reordering it, and making the crop a better version of itself, which is absolutely critical, I think, to the next generation of crop production.
Chuck, we're going to get there, but let's stick with the moment with the other products that you're selling, which are herbicides and pesticides. For lots of people, this is like we really don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
I prepared a question to our audience, which actually is, do you believe that in global agriculture without herbicides and pesticides is possible? You can choose yes or no. Do you think we will need the stuff Chuck sells in the future still?
Do I get the vote or not?
You get the answer.
Okay,
you get the qualified vote later on. It takes a second. Do I get the votes? I can't see them yet. Okay, it's not working. So what's your answer to that one?
Yeah.
Will you be out of business 20 years from now?
I don't think we will be out of business. I think we'll actually be a bigger, stronger business. So look, if you look at the FAO, so the Food and Agriculture Organization, this is United Nations data, they peg total crop losses globally every year, even today, at 40%. So just think about that number for a minute. 40% of what farmers produce every given year gets lost by insect pressure and other pests. So that's with the crop protection products that Corteva and other companies sell. Can you imagine if we eliminated that, what the losses on the planet would be and what we would have to do to replenish that food production? If you flip that coin to the other side, what if we can take the crop losses and cut it in half and only have global losses of 20%? What would that do for sustainability and for food production in the 800 million people that we have today that are undernourished, if we can put it in their hands? So these products are vital to modern food production. Now, what we can do is we can continue to design the next generation where we require much less, that we have precision application, that we're using AI, that we're using drone application.
How can you use AI in what you're doing?
Because there is a time and place to apply the product depending on the weather, the temperature, the soil conditions. And if farmers get that exactly right using science and data, they require much less of the product to be applied. So we have to get smarter at how we apply these products and actually change the way we farm. And these things are in our grasp today. The next journey here is, yes, we can hopefully design crops and seeds that can withstand environmental pressures, higher temperatures, less moisture, hopefully at some point disease and pest resistant built into the genetics of the crop, so we require less products, including less fertilizer.
Now you touch again upon this issue, which is very tricky in Europe, I'd say, and in Germany particularly, GMOs. We can't do without them?
Well, look, I'll tell you this. When I go around the world and I'm in a farm at Iowa, I'll have them come to me and shake my hands and say that if it wasn't for biotechnology or GMO, they wouldn't have a livelihood today. When I go down to Brazil and Argentina, same thing. When I come to Europe, obviously there's a different view here, and I'm not going to try to change anybody's mind, but I do know...
You could try.
I could try, but I do know a few things. That without the invention of biotechnology 25 years ago, we wouldn't have the production levels we'd have today, which by default would most likely mean we would be adding more land into production. So it has been necessary. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, nor does it have to be. There is a time and place for organic farming. There's a time and place for conventional farming. There's a time and place for GMO and non-GMO. I think what we need to do is look forward as an industry and help folks understand that the next level of technology invention is gene editing, which is non-GMO, and I think has the power to actually do more than what biotechnology did 25 years ago. I think the future is bright in agriculture and for farmers. And what we want to do is we want to ensure that farmers, big or small, have an opportunity to have a livelihood. I think that's absolutely critical.
Just to inform you, the answer to the question whether we'll have a world without pesticides and herbicides is the big majorities about the answer of the big majorities. They will remain. There will be 80% of the people, which is, we didn't ask thousands, but the people in this audience, they're pretty sure that we still need your products.
Yeah. We just did a recent study in the United States on policy makers, so the informed audiences, and the results were surprising. We actually heard from them that they consider us to be knowledgeable to agriculture. They were asking us, why do you even need herbicides? Why can't farmers just pull the weeds out by their hands? So if you don't...
It's this idea of precision farming, huh? Where you just have the...
Well, precision farming still requires equipment and it still requires crop protection products. Mechanical or hand weeding a crop that is, if you go to Brazil and there are 30,000 hectares, you know, it wouldn't be a practical solution because you would see so much...
It actually means you need machines to just pull out every little...
Machines or manual labor, it would just, the size of the farming operations are absolutely gigantic. In some parts of the world, you can get away with that, but in the large conventional farming areas, the farming operations are just too large. So what that tells companies like Corteva is we do have work to do with our consumers, and all of us are food consumers. And what we have to do is we have to try to help folks understand what it takes to be successful in agriculture and farming and what the industry is doing to keep our food safe and sustainable. That is absolutely our mission.
The word sustainable comes very often. Now, if I got you right, you answer to all the problems of food that we have in this world is you develop better herbicides and pesticides. You develop GMOs, which lead to less use of herbicides, and then in a couple of years we might be able to feed the world on the remaining land that we actually have in use?
So that's right. We have to continue to drive up production per acre, production per liter of water, and we have to try to eliminate as much as we can in terms of the carbon footprint. And so the next generation, or we call it regenerative ag technology, that technology has to be implemented across the world, and there's a lot of good work happening there. We're seeing both incentives. If you look at the United States, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act, there is significant incentives for farmers to become more sustainable, to use these modern practices, to use precision ag applications. These are, I think, are some of the tools that we need to get into more farmers' hands around the world.
Let's get another feeling of this room. I have a second question, which actually I would like to ask you. Do you really think that we need genetic editing? So, again, the majority thinks we need it.
That's good.
So, maybe you were very convincing. Still, I mean, you know that there's fear attached to it, that something gets out of hand and then it influences nature in a way which is really not good. Are the dangers less today than they were like 20 years ago?
Yeah, so
the fears were higher?
I think when it comes to gene editing, NGTs, there's a fundamental difference between that and GMO. So GMO did introduce foreign products into the genome. With gene editing, it's actually just making the crop a better version of itself. And
cutting out some parts.
It's reshuffling the genome, which, you know, I call it precision breeding, because over time I think the crop would evolve there, but it will take many, many years and decades. And what we've seen, in its early days, but what we've seen is we can produce more crops per acre. We've also starting to design crops that can withstand fungus pressure or insect pressure, which is critical. There are food in the food system in different countries around the world that actually have seen shelf life extended by 30 or 40%, reducing significant amounts of food waste, which is absolutely critical. And we've also seen other products in terms of gene editing that can actually make the food healthier. So there's a tomato, for example, in Japan that is healthy, heart healthy. That is helping folks that have high blood pressure. So there's a lot of next generation technology going in around the world. Now, what we need, though, is we need the regulatory framework. So gene editing right now is I think, going to hopefully come to a vote here in Europe. We're optimistic about that, because the one thing with the global food trade is we do need it fully integrated. It allows food to move around the world and hopefully get to those that need it the most. And so having a sort of a coordinated, integrated regulatory framework, I think, is very, very important when it comes to the food trade.
The counter-argument is that we better produce food where it's close to the consumers. So exactly the other way around.
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at Europe, Europe is a major food provider outside of Europe for wheat, for meat, for dairy, because European farmers are set up, suited, trained to do that. But other products will probably need to come into Europe. And so this is where I think that it's always best to produce food locally, but producing all the food locally probably won't be the most efficient model. And so allowing the food trade, the global grain trade, to be integrated and synchronized is helpful, and it should lower costs so that the final consumer doesn't have to pay for increased friction in terms of the overall food system.
Whenever we talk about nature, the issue becomes kind of touchy, because we are all afraid that we are destroying the planet that we are living on. And I recently read a big research from a colleague of mine who deals with soil, and she said this is kind of the unknown area, the unknown space we all depend upon and we don't think about. One of the arguments she's making is that modern agriculture kind of destroyed the soil and all the microorganisms, the millions and billions that live in there. Do you have solutions for that one? Because she actually argues that we use soil as something where we put something in and something comes out, but it's not that easy.
It's not that easy. It's a living thing, and it needs to be supported, and it needs to be rejuvenated. And that's why proper crop rotations are absolutely critical. That's why checking your soil sampling, making sure that your soil is active. Let me give you a very quick example here. So we've just had US approval. We're waiting for European approval for a new, what we call selective nematicide. So nematodes are little worms. And sometimes the worms are really good for biodiversity. They eat the soil, and then what they leave back is a healthier soil. But sometimes the nematodes eat the crop. And of course, that causes massive crop damage. So Corteva, this is the first of its kind. It's called the selective nematicide. So it'll eliminate the bad nematodes, but it doesn't touch the ones that are rejuvenating the soil. So it's brand new technology. It was just approved last year in the United States, and we're hoping that that'll eventually find its way to Europe and the rest of the world. But that is an example of the work that we're trying to do to ensure that we have healthy soils, but still able to protect the crop, because I think we need to be able to find solutions to do both.
Chuck, do you still work on a farm every once in a while?
I actually have a farm personally, but
you do have one.
Yes, and it's a labor of love, but it's a great farm. So we sell grapes into the vineyard industry.
So you don't produce your own wine?
Well, I don't produce wine. I just try to make grapes because I have a passion for agriculture, and I find it to be so important to stay connected to the challenges that our customers have every day.
So once you produce your first own wine, I'll come to visit you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's in Canada. Thank you.